Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. Today's topic is portraits. You might be asking yourself, what is a portrait? Well, a portrait is a picture of a person. And if the person in that picture is you, then it's a self-portrait. Today I'm going to be showing you a strategy where we can use fractions to help us organize our portrait. In order to do that, you are going to need a piece of paper, a pencil, and a ruler. As soon as you have those things ready, we can get started. So let's go. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing the head. And the head is usually just an oval shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. That looks pretty good. If there's a part you don't like, you erase that part. You might even want to erase a whole section and redraw it, but try your best not to erase the entire thing and start all over, because the further along you get, that just becomes a big waste of time. So that looks pretty good. I'm also going to be putting lots more details in it, so changes can happen in the future, so I'm happy with that as a first start. Next, we are going to figure out where the eyes go. And I'm going to do that with a ruler so you can see that this head is about 7.5 inches tall. So the middle is around the 3.5 mark. Again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. These are estimated measurements. So that is about the 1/2 mark. After that, we continue to cut pieces in half by taking that bottom 3.5-ish inches, and we're going to divide that in half again, which is about 1 3/4. So 1, 1.5, 1 3/4, about right there. Again, doesn't have to be absolutely precise. That's just a good estimate. And we're going to do the same thing with the top section. Another 3.5-ish inches. We're going to divide that at about 1 and 1.5, 1 3/4, right about there. So what we have so far is there's a half. This is about 1/4. That is 3/4. And then this right here would be 1, and down here would be 0. So there's our fractions so far. Now, the purpose of these fractions is that on this half line, that is where the eyes go, with a space in between them and a space on each side. So you can see that this space, and this space are about the same size. And the eyes, I'll add more detail later. And then this 1/4 line, that is where the nose ends up touching at the bottom. There are lots of different ways of drawing the nose, so I try to make it simple but realistic looking. So there's the bridge of my nose, that's one nostril. There's the round part in the center and the other nostril, and I usually stop right there. I could draw the other side, but I just don't do it that way. But if you want to, you can go ahead and do that. You can even draw your nose your own style. If some people draw a nose that looks like a J or a letter L, it's up to you. Just as long as it's in the right place, it's going to look realistic. Alright, this top line up here, this is actually the top of your hairline. So that comes across the top of your head. And then, you know, the hair also comes down the sides. This is where your sideburns go. If you feel on your own face, your sideburns come down lower than your eye, probably to around there, depending on how far you let them grow. Now, if I use my own face as a reference, I can feel that my ears are about even with my eyes, and they go all the way down to about where my nose is. So right here is where my ear is going to go. Most people say, oh my gosh, that ear looks so big, but I alleviate that problem by not drawing my ears sticking out so far. They're just flat along the sides of my head because they're facing a different angle than my face, which is flat in front facing out. And then last, I have one last fraction that I saved. So I put the ruler on the bottom of my head, and I can see that it goes to about 2 and a little bit for my nose. There's actually more around the 2-inch mark, so around the 1-inch mark thereabouts, estimating right about there. That's where my mouth is going to go. And you can draw whatever expression you want. I usually just draw a straight mouth. If I want to smile, I might curve up the sides a little bit. The bottom lip goes under the line. If you like to draw the top lip, you can add that too. But that's not something that I like to add when I'm drawing, so I'll just leave that out. Maybe I'll draw that little divot underneath my nose. Now this is just the basic head where everything is in the correct places. So if you look at this, it should look that everything looks like it's in about the correct places. Nothing looks strangely out of place. Nothing looks like it's uneven or imbalanced. And from here, this is where you'll start to add the details that make the drawing look like you. So if you have a certain hairstyle, you can add that hairstyle in here. You know, if you part your hair on the side, then that you might draw it like that. There's still hair on the sides though. Usually that's cut short if you part your hair on the side. If your hair is really short all over, then you would just leave it blank, but maybe color it in a little bit darker than the rest of your portrait. If you have really long hair, it might come down to your ear and then stick out past your ear. But most hairstyles are going to follow the edges of the head that we drew, unless you have something, you know, like a ponytail that sticks out, or your hair is really spiky and tall. It might stick out of the sides, but I don't have any of those things, so I'm going to get rid of them. And again, the eraser. If you make a mistake, don't erase everything. Just erase the part that you want to fix and fix it. I'm going to go ahead and thin that face out a little. It looked a little too thick to me. Chin, that's cool. Add a neck. Maybe add the edge of my t-shirt that I'm wearing until I hit the bottom of the paper. And then I'll go back. And at this point you can go back and you just start adding whatever details you want to add. Like, if you haven't noticed, I don't have any eyebrows yet. You know, maybe you have an earring in your ear. I do not, so I'll take that away. I got rid of those a long time ago. And there you have it. Basically where everything belongs on your portrait before you start adding specific details to make it look like you. All right, and here is the final drawing before I started coloring it. You can see I added the edge of the collar down here. You can see that I've added some teeth into the mouth. I've added the edges inside the ears, and I'd put the pupils in the eyes. You'll notice that for the pupils, you can't see the entire circle because most of the times you don't see the entire circle when someone's eyes are open. You just see part of it. And then the pupil is right here. I would go ahead and color that in. When I start to color it, I also added the eyebrows and I decorated the background. And that's what I have to do right before I start coloring it, and coloring it is the last step in the process. So here's the final product. It looks a little creepier than I thought he was going to look. It kind of reminds me of a bank robber out of a comic book. But you can see that I created contrast by choosing two groups of colors. I used a group of blues and grays for the background, and then a group of reddish pink colors for the figure. By doing that, the figure stands out from the background. You can also see that I did do a little bit of shading. When I do that, I try to imagine where the light is shining. So it's coming in from this way. So you can see the light hits his forehead, hits this cheek, hits the side of his nose and the side of his mouth. But on this side, it's darker because this is where the shadow is. So you've got the shadow down here on the opposite side of the head. This side of the forehead is a little bit darker than the other side, and there's a strong shadow on the nose because it sticks out, creating an area where the light won't be able to get to. And I did some of the same things on the neck to give it more of a realistic look.